Hi, Lisa Marie Kosis, founder of Global One Health. This video is part 3 in the GFE, or Ground Force Exploration series. As I mentioned, GFE, which is from Ground Force Method, is a great movement assessment for the muscle tissue and the joint structures so that you can see how they feel at the beginning of the day or at the beginning of your workout. As I referenced in the first video, I gave a brief background about GFE and the Ground Force Method, but their premise is to move better and to start joint mobility prep from the ground up. So as you'll notice, the first video targets the ankle, hip, and knee mobility. And then the next video is the bent leg, straight leg scissor video. And then from here we progress as we continue traveling up the body. Now we're going to address shoulder and spine mobility in this video series. So going to get into this position. So this would follow the bent leg, straight leg scissors. So now we're going to go into the S arms. So you are sitting in a cross-legged position, and you will want to feel as equally weighted on both of your sit bones as best you can. Now, if you have a slight restriction in your mobility of your hip joint structure, you may not be able to feel like you're equally weighted and directly up on the sit bones. Well, that is the goal. If you do have a little bit of a tightness in the front of your hip structure, you may only be able to sit up as tall as this. Now, the goal is that you don't want to feel like you're slouching while you're trying to sit up as tall as you can. If you can't actively get into this position visually as I look in neutral spine, if you are rounded, you're still trying, right? There's still a very definite intention that you're doing your best to sit up as tall as you can, even if this is the best that you can do. And again, that is very directly related to the mobility of the joint structure that you have for yourself. So again, you want to be as equally weighted as you can, ankles crossed. It doesn't matter which ankle's in front. It is designed that you will switch halfway through the reps as you are progressing in the exercise. So you begin with your arms out to the sides, and I'll just show you the first position that we get into. One arm is going to be behind the back of the head. We'll talk more specifically about that in a moment. And when I face backwards, which I will do in a moment so that you can see what the actual hand position looks like from a posterior view. Right, so then the goal is I want to basically switch arms. So I'm creating an S pattern, as you'll see. Now, the goal is shoulder mobility. So I don't want you just, right, you're not just trying to get one hand behind the head and one hand behind the back. So it's not about getting into a random position. It's how you get there. And that's going to be the aspect that you think about, which is actually going to be where the intention of the shoulder mobility is actually happening. So the arm that's behind the head is going to reach up to the ceiling. The other arm reaches down to the ground. You pass through this nice open reach, second position as we refer to it in dance, right? And now the other arm is overhead and the reverse arm. So basically the seated S arm, cross-legged position is going to be just an alternating pattern. Now please do cross the other ankle in front. We'll do a few reps on that side. The reason being is that it actually does affect the degree of shoulder mobility, believe it or not, and I've noticed this on quite a number of clients. While some people don't feel any or even a little bit of difference between the shoulder mobility with one ankle in front versus the other, I have experienced quite a number of clients notice somewhat or even a very noticeable difference in their degree of shoulder mobility based on which ankle is in front. So you do want to make sure that you switch, and that is actually put into the sequential patterning in the certification. So I'm going to face backwards just so that you could have a better view of what the arm position actually looks like. So again, sitting up nice and tall as best you can. That activates the muscles throughout the whole trunk, which you do want very much engaged. Arms go out. So if I go into this position here, just to talk about this a little bit, right? The hand that's behind the head, your goal is, yes, to get your elbow up as high as you can. Now the hand, if you have more mobility, you may get the hand almost to the back of the cervical spine, your neck, or at least the base of the skull. But if you can't get the arm that low, that's okay. Listen to the joint. You may only get the hand up above the head slightly, maybe even only to the back of the skull. So your range of motion and joint mobility will be determined by that, right? So the back hand, notice this then, the top hand, the palm is facing the head. Now the arm that's lower is going to be palm facing away from you, Again, your shoulder mobility will determine where that hand can actually go. If you have more mobility, you might be able to slide the hand up higher towards the, mid or low back. If you don't have such good mobility, the hand may be down by the sacrum or the lumbar. Again, the goal is to get that nice range of motion as best you can with no compensation. So that's important. Another footnote from a side view, because I see this quite a lot as clients are trying to get the arm behind their head, right? They're thinking, I need to get the arm, quote, behind my head, and they kind of duck the head down and forward, right? So they might be sitting up nice and tall, and then when they go to bring the arm overhead, I will see the head drop, the spine round. Try to avoid that. While you do want to get that hand nicely behind the head, you want to maintain as much of a neutral spine position as you can, keeping the chest and the front of the spine long and open. So don't duck the head just to get the hand back there. Own that spine position, and wherever the hand can get is where it can get based on how your joint feels that day or how much mobility you have in the joint structure overall. So please try not to compensate the position of your spine at all, simply to get in that position. Now, another important aspect of the S-arms is that the arm that's in overhead position is externally rotated, and the arm that's behind the back is an internal rotation. So another great component of this is that you're actually specifically targeting the rotator cuff muscles of the shoulder capsule. Well, they have two very important jobs. One of them, obviously, rotator cuffs, is to do rotation of the arm bone in the socket. So you are really getting very specific work in those rotator cuffs, but they're also very important intrinsic muscles as they stabilize the shoulder joint, as in rocking, weight bearing, and a lot of that I've talked about in some of the other videos that I've already posted. The bird dogs, anytime you're weight bearing, you want to be corkscrewed. So this is a great drill to strengthen and wake up those rotator cuff muscles so that they can serve a better job for you in some of those loaded weight bearing positions that we've already talked about a little bit. Now, the next exercise in the GFE from this seated S position is you actually do that same arm position in a prone position of the body, and this follows directly after. So you do the seated S arms, and then immediately after you go into the prone position. So prone is referencing I am lying on my stomach. That doesn't mean that my body is just kind of relaxed while I just think about moving my arms around. You want to very much keep your stomach and core musculature engaged. And in both this and the next exercise, in the prone position in GFE, you want to make sure glute muscles are turned on. Do not relax them. Well, that's important for the S arms. It's going to be even more important when we get into the prone position of COBRA, which directly follows the S arms. So one quick important note, I always assess my client's neck position when they are lying on their stomachs, based upon their mobility, their just overall body structure. If a client lies down, or if you feel this yourself at home, if you're lying down and you feel like your head is in this position where it's lower than your rib cage and the neck gets into this kind of broken line position, that's not ideal, right? You always want to try to maintain a neutral spine position when you are lying down, whether it's on the back or on the stomach here in prone. So I recommend, I have a shirt folded up. You could take that, a hand towel, if you have a little tiny thin pillow or prop that you can use at home, but you want to make sure when you bring your head down that your spine, your cervical spine, is in neutral, so you don't feel like your head is ducking down, falling forward. And that's just to put your spine in the most ideal position. So you want to be mindful of that, please. And again, it's just the forehead that's on the support, so that the nose, the cartilage of the nose, is not pushing into the ground. The base of the support is by the bridge of the nose. So as I mentioned, this is going to be the second variation of S arms. It's the exact same movement pattern we did in the cross-legged position. It's going to feel different because of your relationship to gravity. So I definitely recommend doing this in both positions. Don't just do one or the other. They both give you a great sense of how to activate the shoulder muscles. And here, gravity has a nice little different twist on how much your shoulder musculature is engaging. So again, my body's reaching long. I'm not relaxed into the ground. My core and trunk muscles are engaged, very much engaging my glute muscles. I'm thinking about my legs reaching nice and long in the opposite direction of my body and my head. So there's a nice energy, vertical energy going up and down in the body. I begin with my arms out to the sides, and I do that same S pattern several times. Right now, you're trying to get the circular pattern, but the ground has a very different component. It has a very different component to the S drill. Right, so again, I'm trying to get one arm behind my back, one arm behind my head. Here, there won't be any compensation of the spine. So that is another nice variation that you'll feel and notice that this prone position will give you. Now, from here, we go to the third exercise in this video series, or this video of the GFE series, and that is prone COBRA. So from here, we just transfer right from the S arms, fold your arms into your body. I'll show you what the COBRA looks like, and then I'll get into some more specifics. So this is that classic prone COBRA position. Now, first and foremost, where to put the hands. You don't want to put them in any random position, but if they're too far away, you'll feel like you're out like this. If you bring them too far backwards, now the elbows are kind of flaring up to the ceiling, might cause the shoulder to collapse forward, which you want to try to avoid. So I suggest to my clients, get that sense of packing the shoulders I talked about in another video, right, and pulling my shoulder blades down towards my low back. And when I engage my upper mid-back musculature, I kind of feel this drawing down energy of my scapula right towards my rib cage and low back. When I engage the back and I feel I'm trying to almost tuck or hug my upper arm bones into my ribs, I get that nice set position. Then there's no question on where my hands need to go, or it's a little bit more definitive as to where they need to go. So palms are down. Yes, my arms are going to assist me in this COBRA position, but please try not to just push yourself up with your arms. And then especially if you let go of your glutes and core, it will either cause, or you might even feel a little bit of a compression or a little wedging or jamming in your low back. You don't want to feel that, right? So keep the core and glutes engaged, but while the arms are assisting you up, the primary goal is that you're using the muscles, the spinal erectors specifically, that run vertically along the spine. You want to contract those back muscles that support the spine, and they are pulling you up into extension while your arms are supporting and pushing, and as they're working together as a unit, right? So the spine muscles bring you up. You keep all that nice contraction through the body. Feel like you're getting longer as you go down. And just to address the breathing, because that is rather important, and especially in this position, you always take a nice breath in. You inhale going up into a COBRA, and you exhale as you control your body back down. One other important note, try not to come up and allow your shoulders to slip up or your elbows to go sideways. You want to kind of keep externally rotating. There's that corkscrew intention I've talked about in a number of videos, right? Corkscrewing the arms into the body, externally rotating, and the packing of the shoulders. So you want to keep the packing and the corkscrew energy active throughout that position as you move in and out of COBRA. So that is the third exercise in this specific video. So as you'll notice, we started from the ground up, hence ground force method, right? In these first three videos, this one is now targeting shoulder and spine mobility much more directly. So I highly recommend doing them in the sequential patterning because you do want to start from the ground up, because remember that your feet are your direct connection to the ground. But as we walk, there is a natural spinal movement. So do all of the exercises so that you can get the benefit and the value of what the series is designed to give you. So that is the video 3, but there are more videos to come in the GFE series. We are not done with the basic patterning as of yet. So please stay tuned for those to come.